Hi, I'm Cass. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be setting up my November 2021 bullet journal, and this month I decided to theme it around How to Train Your Dragon. Now, these movies were my childhood. Oh my goodness. I love dragons. I still love dragons to this day, and I love animation and Vikings and just everything about these movies. It still means so much. And I was originally just gonna do like a simple dragon theme, and then I was like, why don't I incorporate the How to Train Your Dragon franchise into it? And that is what happened. Now, before I fade off into the background, be sure that if you do enjoy the video, maybe give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, consider subscribing. It's just a click of a button. But that is all, and I'm gonna pass you over to the voiceover. Hello, and welcome back to yet another Plan With Me video. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up absolutely adoring How to Train Your Dragon movies. In fact, most DreamWorks films back when I was a kid were pretty solid movies that I still can enjoy to this day. But How to Train Your Dragon has especially stuck with me since it centers around Vikings and dragons. If you don't know, I love many things that were around during the Middle Ages, including things such as the lore and aesthetic. That mainly stems from my favorite book series being Ranger's Apprentice by John Flanagan, which is set back in medieval times and draws inspiration from real-life people such as Vikings and Celts. Although, interestingly enough, the main characters, the Rangers, were inspired by the United States Reconnaissance Force in World War II. But I'm sure you didn't click on this video for a history lesson or for me gushing over my favorite book series, so let's talk about the art I'm working on. For my cover page, and in fact all of my pages, I drew inspiration from the Book of Dragons that was shown in the movie that Hiccup was flipping through. Although this particular image of the Night Fury, aka the cutest freaking dragon Toothless, was drawn by Hiccup himself in his notebook. In the corner I drew Celtic knots, which you can fight me if you think I'm pronouncing it wrong, because both ways of saying Celtic and Celtic are actually correct. The Celtic pronunciation was originally how it was said, and nowadays it's more often pronounced as Celtic, but it depends on who you talk to really. For me, I've always said Celtic, and it's a bit of a hard habit to switch, and since technically both are correct, I think it's fine. Anyway, side tangent over, these were a bitch to draw, and I thought to myself, you know what's a great idea? Let's draw 4 of these. My technique for drawing these was to first draw out the shape using just one line, then I drew lines parallel to the original ones before erasing the parts that needed to be erased for they went under and over in the right spots. And I repeated that tedious process 4 times. However, the pain of drawing 4 of these was well worth it. As for why I chose to do Celtic knots instead of Nordic knots, which would have made more sense for this theme, was for 2 reasons. One, oftentimes Nordic knots are drawn to incorporate an animal or be created to look like a certain animal. They're super cool and also headache-inducing when one tries to recreate it from a reference photo. And that's the second reason. I found that most Nordic knots were way more difficult to draw and do justice to, so I settled with finding a simple Celtic knot that fit the aesthetic. As for the lettering I used throughout my spreads, I just kind of found a Viking-esque font I liked and just rolled with it and modified some of the letters to fit the style I wanted. And the symbols that you see me writing are actually the Viking alphabet, at least the version by Cressida Cowell, who was the original author of the How to Train Your Dragon book series. Some of the lettering actually says things like the weekdays up at the top of my calendar, but the chunks of mini sentences are actually just mumbo jumbo and nonsense. I don't even know what I wrote. If you've seen any of my past Plan With Me videos, you might have noticed that this theme isn't as extra and over the top as some of my others, especially the cover page. I wanted to experiment doing a more minimalist style since I had such a busy month. It was refreshing to just sit down and record my entire setup in one sitting. Usually the cover page alone of my journals would take the same amount of time or more to set up compared to how much time I spent on this entire month's setup. Another thing I experimented with is the line style. I took inspiration from Julianne Doodle's typical drawing style, where she draws short lines and leaves small gaps to create an almost dainty-esque look. I don't think I did a fantastic job, but for my first time trying a new style of line art, I think I did okay. I also used a brown fine liner instead of my usual black fine liner. I used a Pigma Micron in the size 0.1, and it worked pretty well throughout the spreads. As for my color palette, I continued the trend of using a monochromatic color scheme, and this month it was browns. I used 2 different shades, a Tombow Fudonosuke brush pen, and the code for that was 977, and the other brown was a Crayola Super Tip, and those don't have a code. What dragons to draw, I mostly just went with whatever one had a decent reference photo, no true rhyme or reason. All of these were so fun to just outline, and I didn't have to worry about coloring them in since it was supposed to resemble the sketches done in the Book of Dragons. One thing I did want to touch on is my absolute unwavering love for Astrid in these movies. As a kid, and even now as a sort of adult, I can't decide if I wanted to be Astrid or to be Hiccup so I could date Astrid. Firstly, her character design is so freaking good, I love it. And even as she ages throughout the movies, she's still so freaking pretty, I cannot. Next is her personality. She was so spunky and sarcastic and sassy and just a complete badass, and I was so drawn to those types of characters as a kid. And that's maybe why in real life I'm so sassy, possibly. I mentioned earlier how I loved the aesthetic of the Middle Ages, and that's why I love shows like this, where they took inspiration from those times and made it into an animation. 2 things I love to see combined. That half of this voiceover was either a history lesson or me gushing over these films, so I might as well include the fun fact of this soundtrack being one of my favorites of all time, very high up there with the Harry Potter soundtrack. The immediate nostalgia it brings is insane, and I love music that makes me feel like a kid again. And also, the beginning and ending monologues are more iconic than Shakespeare's, in my opinion. Obviously joking, so all you Shakespeare stans, don't come for me. For my quote page, taken out of context and read as normal, it might seem a bit harsh. It reads, "Thanks for nothing, you useless reptile." However, this is one of my favorite lines in the movies. It was really hard to choose a line of dialogue for my quote page because the amount of top-tier dialogue that occurs in this movie is ridiculous. Especially since the way they deliver their lines are so good. Like, I could gush over this movie all day, and I'm gonna rewatch the entire franchise throughout the month of November, probably like one a week or something. It brings me so much joy. But anyway, this particular quote is from the scene where Astrid rides Toothless for the first time, and Toothless is a salty little bitch and starts flying like crazy in order to get Astrid to apologize for being rude. I'll play the clip right here for you know what I'm talking about.
Thank you for nothing, you useless reptile.
Every time I watch that clip, I laugh because the delivery of Hiccup's lines are so good. Like, everyone's line deliveries are so good. Okay, I'll stop. is the final look at my November bullet journal for 2021, themed after How to Train Your Dragon. I hope you enjoyed the video and didn't mind the random spewing of facts about history and my gushing over these movies. Thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. It really means the world to me. If you did like it, like I said in the beginning, make sure you give it a like and also consider subscribing to see more bullet journal, bookish, and lifestyle content from me. I also have a bullet journal Instagram where I post pictures of my bullet journal, as one might think. And I have an Etsy shop where I sell stickers and art prints. Also, fun time over here. So if those interest you, maybe you should check them out. All the links will be down below in the description. I really hope I see you in the next one, but that is going to be all for now. Toodles!